So, hello guys, welcome in 2020 and welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast with me, Pascal Flor, and on the other end, it is the man himself who's dieting now, so he's getting smaller. It's Steve Hall.
Can you tell in my face? My face looked leaner. I'm not sure. I feel like...
I don't know. Did you shave?
Not recently.
Okay.
I feel like...
It's hard to tell when someone is wearing a beard. My face is always looking a little bit bigger when I'm wearing or have a little bit of hair on my face.
I think I was looking over Harry took some photos of us when we were doing the member site footage, and I was like, I just look really fat in that photo. Don't know if my neck positioning or something just looked really not flattering, but I'm definitely getting leaner. I'm excited to take progress photos at the end of next week to see like what has actually gone on. But I need to purchase a light that, again, Harry, our videographer, recommended, because otherwise the photos will just look terrible.
You and stuff like that, nah? It's unbelievable.
It's on my to-do list. I don't need it yet. It's fine.
your New Year's resolution, so to speak.
What, to buy in action things immediately?
Yeah, because the other light that broke down with the fuse, how long did it take you to actually take care of that? It's
still here. It's still in it. Like, actually, you can see it there. There's the box.
Yeah.
That fucking light. Oh, dear. I'm glad I'm now getting a light that will work for me at least. And do
next time you can actually give it to me and maybe I can make it work for me at home. I don't know. Maybe it's something off with British electricity. Brexit is going to happen at the end of January anyway now, and so
is it January? I thought they'd moved it. Maybe not.
Did they move
It's never going to happen. I don't know.
It's unbelievable, mate.
I don't know how you get used to Germany, by the way. They're a bit big.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I'm moving bigger things to Germany when I'm on the plane. So,
oh god,
we've already gone there. Yeah, we are once again there, but we didn't really say what it is, right? So I still can't believe that Brexit is actually going down. I throughout the entire time, I still had hopes that it's actually not going to happen.
Yeah, it's.
Are we still able to communicate after that?
Imagine.
It's like the DDR. Like there's just a wall between us.
We're just, I don't know, communist.
Oh.
We're screwed.
Oh. I'm in West Berlin and you are just cut off from the entire society.
Politics chat is not my game.
It's just like,
I did vote and my vote didn't work. That's all I've got to say.
It's your fault.
Democracy at its finest.
Yeah, it is.
Which is sometimes we regret it.
Yeah.
So how's your fat loss phase going? You're 6 weeks, 7 weeks in?
I think 8 weeks now.
8 weeks.
9.
So we're almost due some more photos.
Yes, I'm taking my next round of photos when the deload is around, which because I'm once again sick here over the past couple of days and yeah, what was it? After the Christmas period, I got sick once again. It was the 4th time, believe it or not, the 4th time ever since I've started dieting that I was ill. Thing is though, it must be said that probably it's just because we are moving around the sickness in the family. So when Hugo was sick, totally fine, right? I was fine. Then we cuddled a little bit, kissed a little bit, right? This is how we do things in the family. And all of a sudden I'm sick again, and then I'm giving it to Tony because I'm cuddling and kissing with him as well. And Katie is just fine. I don't know what it is. She's just resistant.
They're stronger.
Yeah, resistant to that kind of stuff. And yeah, I was sick now for the 4th time, and this time it really hit me hard. That's why I had to take additional rest days once again in regards to training and move my schedule around so that I don't need to take a deload early I need to take then a diet break because I didn't want to. But because of that, my scale weight also moved very slowly here over the past 1.5 to 2 weeks. I just think that because my stress levels, internal stress levels have been so high, I didn't really feel like I was stressed, but probably it is what it is, right? When you are sick and your body is fighting something, shit is getting real there. It is like Game of Thrones, season 8. It's dark. No one can see what's going on. And there's a huge army there that no one knows about, right? And this is probably happening inside of me right now. Dragons fighting and stuff.
I recommend people don't watch that episode with blue light blockers on. It's dark enough without wearing blue light blockers, which I think I did. And I was like,
what is going on there? And even without the blue light blocking glasses, just like, still can't see anything. I was lying in my bed with my tablet. And I thought that it was the settings of my light of the screen that was wrong. And the good thing is that I was watching that on the VLC player, and there you can artificially even increase the light, which was good because then I could see the brightness. That was good because then I could see a little bit more. Everything was a little bit more grainy and a little bit more milky looking, but it was a little bit better. So yeah, good old times.
You're completely right with the stress. I think people don't realize it, but you can be very stressed without feeling necessarily stressed. Yes. Because I am one of those people. I think I generally have a higher stress level than some other people. I can be slightly like just anxious. Stuff is on my mind. It's playing on my mind. It makes me stressed. And I don't feel like my body is stressed because I don't know, I'm recovered and I feel fine and I'm not like starving, hungry or something. But just small things can build up and cause you a bit of stress. Like you have traveling whenever you come over to London and then travel back. Yeah. It just takes its toll on the body. And obviously, I think being up in the air and at altitude screws up your hydration and like water retention somewhat. But so you haven't made any adjustments. You've still just stuck to the same.
Absolutely. Because I know just based on the previous data and also this is kind of the same scenario we went through together like 4 weeks ago when I came back from the UK. I just know from past and previous data, also when starting the cutting phase, that I was in a caloric deficit. I didn't change any kind of other variables, and thus I am in a caloric deficit. There's no way around that, right? And because of that, I just stuck to it because I know, okay, the time will come where it will then come down because right now, this is only being masked due to the internal stress levels that are going on and due to the sickness, and I know that it will happen. And the fucked up thing is that I haven't been under 80 kilograms for a very long time now, ever since 2017. And this is kind of, you know that, right? When I think now we are a little bit further emotionally away from lifting than we've been in the past. But in the past, there have been numbers on the bar. For example, the squat. Like, I need to squat that number for, I don't know, 1 rep max or for that amount of repetitions, no matter what. And you've been so fixated on hitting that number and beating that PR that it was becoming such a barrier to overcome that it was just, I don't know, too much of a challenge for you. And this is kind of the same what's happening in regards to my scale weight. I want to see the scale weight number being or dipping below the 80 kilogram mark because this is something that last year when I've done a little bit of a longer cut and planned on then competing, and then I found out that Katie is pregnant and then I ended that one as well. I was touching that once again, where I was like, okay, I'm getting close to the 80 kilogram mark. And then it didn't happen because all of a sudden I was stalling. This was also the time with studying. And I think also once again there, a lot of stress was then going on with them moving back again from Potsdam to Berlin, canceling the apartment there. And right now it's just like, I want to see the 79 point E. And it's simply not happening.
And that's a really good point because I think, like training, I think a lot of people have the mentality that they have to like chase progression, which I get it, but like chasing like, oh, I've got to hit this number, and just same with scale weight, oh, I've got to hit this. And I think you do yourself a favor with training for hypertrophy and for dieting to kind of let it come to you. So it's just like, I'm just doing what I need to do and I'll get the right result. But there's kind of a nice healthy middle ground where you don't just sit back too much and let it come to you so much that you just don't actually progress. The same in the gym. You don't push hard enough and you don't see any result. Yeah. You have to find that nice sweet middle ground, which can be tricky at times, especially when you're self-coached.
And in the end, that weight doesn't really matter.
No.
It's just in my head. And it would be nice to see to actually keep that motivation high. But at the same time, now that I'm speaking it out loud, I don't even give a shit about that motivational kind of aspect, because hitting the 79 or below 80 kilogram mark doesn't mean jack shit in the grand scheme of things, all right? Especially when the overall goal is to hit below 70 kilograms. So, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter at all, honestly.
We're going to have to start tracking our weight in the same metric, because in my head, I'm just pounds. So I'm thinking I want to get below 190 pounds.
Why is it that you are doing pounds anyway in the UK?
I think the Americans use pounds, right? And I think it's because all the information I digested on nutrition, like 1 gram per pound, that sort of thing, from like Alan Aragon, Lyle McDonald from the start, I've got just suck it into, and I followed like Matt Ogus and all the Americans tracking things in pounds, and I just ended up being like, oh, I like pounds. It seems to, and it gives me 3 numbers. It's a little bit more precise, but it's actually not any different. But I use pounds, and I'm sitting, the lowest weigh-in I got actually was on New Year's Day, but that might be a little bit quote unquote bad data, because I weighed in at 9:30 a.m. and I typically weigh in at like 7 a.m. Okay. And I went to bed at 3 a.m. and I usually go to bed at like 10:30 p.m.
What was it?
What was what? Oh, the weigh-in was 191 pounds. So peak mass was 202. And then, I've been trickling down. So I'm just about on target to where I'd planned to be. But I'm finding that, I'm kind of...
no, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm in the similar situation to you where I'm like, am I holding on to stress? Like, am I stressed and holding on to some water because I'm actually dieting quite aggressively and not seeing the rate of loss that I might expect? Or do I actually just need to lower things? And when I remind myself that I was like maintaining on 4,000 calories and now I'm consuming 2,500 with everything tracked, not like 100% precision, like anally with things, but I'm tracking like veggies and everything, I should be losing at the rate that I expect. It's just not showing itself on the scale, which I think you can only play that game for so many weeks, like maybe a couple of weeks at this point. And if it doesn't keep moving down, it's kind of like you need to make some sort of adjustment.
How many calories are you now consuming? Have you made any kind of adjustment so far?
So I was sitting at like 2,600 and now I moved it this week to 2,500. I also have to take into consideration Christmas, which actually we didn't, because that's happened now.
It happened, yeah.
I was at Charlotte's for 3 days and then at my parents' for 2 days. So I wasn't able to weigh and monitor everything as exactly as I'd like. So like Christmas dinner would just be piling on turkey, veggies, and having some roast potatoes and things. And I'm guesstimating stuff, and I don't know. I could be hundreds of calories, easily hundreds of calories over or under. And I don't know. I thought I was underestimating because I felt quite hungry. And I think it was just because when you play that mind game and when you're away, you can't have your usual foods, and you can't have your usual structure. You get kind of hungry. But I think I may have underestimated some things. So I had like Christmas cake. I put in an estimate, and then I was like, in hindsight, looking at it, I was like, I put in 300 calories for that slice of Christmas cake. It wasn't a big slice, but I was like, that maybe have been like 400. And I could quite possibly have underestimated like the roast potatoes by like 100 calories. And then more things add up, and I could have been eating closer to 3,000 calories. So I'm giving it this week at least. And hopefully I tend to, I said this on the members site, which is now live on my forum. And I just said in the forum on my training log, it's like I tend to hit a new low, plateau for a week, hit a new low, plateau for a week. So I kind of need to see that new low this Sunday.
What is really this for forum and training log you're talking about?
Yeah, my training log.
What is that?
We haven't spoken. That's launched now. So jumping to the members site, which launched yesterday, and we have like almost 50 signups in the first. It hasn't even been 24 hours yet, so we may be close to getting 50 signups, which we had no expectations. So anything was brilliant. To see people sign up for like lifetime subscriptions was amazing. So hopefully people have seen that YouTube video, because we put it out on YouTube, which got a really cool response as well. People were very supportive. But some of you may be listening just on the podcast or on iTunes or on whatever you're listening to it on. And yes, we have a membership site now. So we have courses, we have presentations from industry experts. The courses we have some really exciting courses planned. We have a forum, so training logs within the forum, questions, that sort of thing, kind of trying to emulate a updated bodybuilding forum with very smart, like-minded people. And then we have vlogs are going to be on there. We have Ryan's kind of big three. We have the research digest, which is, I guess, a little bit similar to mass, but kind of a bit in its own, a different kind of take on things. We have form videos. So we have a big exercise library, which we spent, like you guys know, we spent a lot of time doing that. So it's exciting to see that kind of go.
This is only the beginning. I mean, we already have quite a lot of content now starting off, but this is just the beginning, as already talked about, right? And imagining, because we will be putting in the work over the next couple of weeks and months, and just imagine where this can be in 5 years. What we want with this to become is the platform for bodybuilding, or people who are enthusiastic or passionate as we are about bodybuilding, physique development, and lifting in general, right? Because right now, there is no the place on the internet to be at. Like back in the days, it was, you mentioned that, bodybuilding.com, the forum, right? But right now, it's kind of all over the place. And we want to start, once again, creating a platform where the only platform that people need, right? Because they are getting everything there. Educational content, then self-development when it comes to lifting, self-check, a little bit of entertainment as well, but also then they can log their journey so that other people can participate in their own life as well. And this is what we're offering for only $6.99 per month. $6.99, that is a meal, right?
It's less. Well, it depends. Meal out.
And for the amount that you're getting there is, in my opinion, and this is something that I can say with a huge confidence, it's crazy. Like, how can you not afford not being in that member or part of the member side? So I would let me do something very, very fancy. I would just throw in the clip for the member side now.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people. But each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library. the exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy. We're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them. We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets. I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it. You will get so much out of that. I'll see you inside.
I'm back again.
So was that our YouTube video that's just gone in?
Yes.
Very cool. So
all right.
I hope people enjoyed that.
Magic.
I think listening, you get plenty. If you're listening to the podcast, you still get an idea. But if you want to see, like, I don't know, get a glimpse of the membership site and see our shining faces, then you'll want to watch the YouTube video.
So we've been actually talking about that because we are vlogging, but also logging our journey in the forum, right? So if you guys are fancying seeing what Steve is doing in regards on a weekly basis or daily basis to his adjustments and to his diet, especially later down the line, the deeper you are in a prep, I think it's very, very interesting to actually take a look even at the spreadsheets, because you are sharing that and I'm sharing my spreadsheet as well. So people see when we are making adjustments, what we are doing, and then they can even ask questions specifically to that. And you can take away so much if you are actually seeing how someone is doing the contest prep. And I think that we are handling things quite differently at the moment, at least, because you're right now very much on a specific amount of macros, right? And for me, it's more like, okay, I'm making sure to hit a minimum amount of protein. I be in a range of the macros. And also when it comes to vegetables and greens, I'm not tracking those at the moment. So, and then later down the line, it will completely change when it's more necessary to be a little bit more on point, rigid, and monitor things a little bit closer.
Yeah, I could tell you, I'm basically 200 plus protein, 200 to 2. I might let it go to 220. I won't be that strict if it wants to go that high, but at the moment, I'm happy just sitting around 200, 210. My carbs are now like 280. Any give and take like 10 grams either side, and then my fats are like 50 to 60. So yeah, I pretty much eat. Wow, this is an update. So for January, Charlotte has kind of challenged me / requested me to be vegetarian. So the macros won't change, but my food intake is going to change a little bit. Basically just bought a load of egg whites because I am slightly lactose intolerant. I think maybe, for having spoken to Gabrielle, so I can't just eat a load of quark or Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, although I did just buy some cottage cheese because I was like, our Waitrose don't even sell egg whites. What's going on with that? So they're not easily available, and I bought some bulk powders now. So, but egg whites are a great diet food, so I'm not too worried about it.
Funny enough, because in the past, I saw myself more like a vegetarian, but not because I wanted to or out of ethical or moral reasons. But it was more like I couldn't really afford like steaks and stuff like that, right? And right now, I'm very much enjoying steaks like 3 to 4 times out of the week for lunch with a salad, and that just fills me out, and it's so delicious actually. And I've been telling you here just recently, and I think even on the last Improvement Season podcast episode, that my mentality around dieting has completely changed, and the way I'm dieting right now is completely different to the way I've been dieting in the past, which is very cool because it is so much more mature right now. I'm not stuffing my face because I'm anxious or afraid of hunger. The things I'm eating are much more mindful as well, and yeah, I don't know. But funny enough, what I wanted to say is I'm eating much more meat than I did in the past. Carnivore.
And you can interpret that how you like, eating much more meat. Wink.
Oh boy. No. So if we go down that road, if you really want to get into details, no. Not if you're having 2 kids at home.
Oh dear. But yeah, I think in future, I don't ever see myself as being vegetarian. It just doesn't fit exactly with my values. Not that I'm saying I don't think vegetarianism is great. I think it's fine if people want to do that. But again, I think what it might do in future is make me think like I'm going to have, maybe I'll have a steak once a week. I have like salmon twice a week. And then the other days I may be vegetarian, something along those lines. That's what I'm thinking. But it'll be interesting to just, I think for me, I think for you, for me, it's easy because we just have a plan, execute. I'm not really that food focused. I don't care if I don't get to eat a steak for a few weeks. It's not a big deal to me. Charlotte's doing veganuary, so she's not able to eat her cheese or chocolate, and so it's going to be much harder for her. I wouldn't want to do it.
Sorry about that. I mean, once again, we've been talking about that, I think, in the past as well, when it comes to veganism or vegetarians. If you go down that route out of moral or ethical reasons, totally fine, in my opinion, right? If it's more like a choice because you think that it's necessarily healthier, yes, there's some data that is showing quite good benefits, but that doesn't mean that it is due to the vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, because especially the studies that are then being conducted on many of those peoples, vegetarians and vegans are most of the time a little bit more conscious of their health and overall life choices than the ones who are eating like garbage all the time. Right? Vegetarians and vegans are most of the time just like more aware of stuff, and also living a healthier life in general, having a lower BMI, stuff like that, right? And thus, is it then really the way they eat that they end up being healthier and the mortality rate is better? Or is it then being maybe, I don't know, more active, having a lower BMI, because we know that is correlated with a mortality risk as well when it's higher, right? So, I mean, out of moral and ethical reasons, be my guest. Absolutely. But don't necessarily claim that it's absolutely the healthiest option to go with. I think that a very... when we take a look at the scientific literature around healthy individuals, when you are eating a wide variety of food and it's coming primarily from wholesome foods, it is probably a very, very healthy diet to run with, whether you are including meaty animal products or not.
Yeah, I think actually when you're, like the degree of, you have to think about things from when you're like a omnivore to being, I don't know what the word would be for, I guess, omnivore to vegetarian to then vegan. You have to consider more and more things because you're restricting your diet more and more. So like vitamin B12 or something like that, like vegans and vegetarians have to start thinking about these things. Iron, for example, especially for females. And I think a lot of people just jump into vegan or vegetarianism and think it's healthier because that's what they hear and they assume it is. And then they lack these vitamins because they're not having the steak anymore or whatever it might be. And it's like, well, now you're in a really unhealthy state, despite thinking it's a quote unquote healthier lifestyle. And I think overall, like you said, it's the balanced diet as a whole is the most health promoting. And I think some people get that, but I mean, a lot of people don't. And Game Changers just came out and that probably pushed a lot of people the wrong way, which is kind of frustrating, but it is what it is.
I hate it when stuff like that has such an impact on society, when it is just like cherry picking data. And I mean, overall, it is good when people are a little bit more conscious about their food choices. And I think that there is a general lack of awareness when it comes to that. I was talking with Katie about it. It's frightening that kids in school are not being taught what proper eating is, because that is something that you're doing your entire life. And the lack of awareness is leading to such a obesity epidemic that we are having right now, because people simply don't know what they are stuffing down their throat, right? And thus, they are trying to regulatory systems right now. For example, I don't know if you've heard it, like a kind of a red light system here in Germany.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay, and they are trying to implement that into the food industry. Thing is, though, that it gives people a false idea of what food is. And they are then just judging a food by whether it says it's green and thus it's good, it's yellow and thus, and it's red and thus bad. And how do you determine what good, quote unquote, food is and what bad, quote unquote, food is, right? It is just like masking or putting makeup on the actual scar tissue. But it doesn't really treat the scar tissue, so to speak. What I rather would love to see in our society is a general education when it comes to these things, because I think it's absolutely important, right? And that just, we are getting a little bit political here, but if people are going down that road without having any kind of awareness, obesity is rising. And with obesity comes so much cost for the entire society, then the entire society and government needs to take care of. If someone is getting like diabetes or so, he needs treatment for his entire life. And if then the social system or so is taking care of that, it's you who is paying for the ones who are now obese or who are now diabetics, right? So why not trying to educate along the way so that people are aware of what they are actually eating? And then if they are still making those choices, hey, be my guest, do that, right? But something like a red light system, the thing is that, do you want to tell me that something like nuts, only because it's high in fat and has like calories of 600 calories per 100 grams, is worse than something like, I don't know, a bag of chips or so?
I was thinking, what do for us, I think, I don't actually look at it really. I see it on the packages, but I completely ignore it and I look at the macros on the back because we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But I think ours is based off like total fat, saturated fat, and sugar.
Okay.
And it's just so so you look at salmon and you're like, oh, that's red. That's no good. I'm not eating that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, salmon could be very, very helpful for, like, everything could be helpful.
Absolutely. And this is what I'm saying, that it doesn't help educate the people and making them aware of what good choices are and what not. All right. You're just trying to find a system that works without educating the people. They are still zombies when they are going in there, and they are just buying it because they are seeing a color without actually knowing what they are buying. And thus, it is basically the same as what it has been before. But this time, it's just color picking instead of like what they are actually just desiring, right? And sometimes they can even fall into the risk of then confirmation bias. Like, no, this is green and thus it must be healthy. And thus it can even be that they are then consuming even more calories because they are under the impression that they are eating low calories, right? And I think it's just a totally flawed system. I think that the idea behind that and the intention of building awareness is a good one, but it is completely failing. And I think that it needs to happen somewhere, maybe in school, because eating is the responsibility of the adults showing that to the kids of what proper eating can look like. And if they don't or learn it when they are younger, it's very, very hard to actually change those habits when they are older. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, dietary education initially comes from parents. Then it comes from like friends' influence, and they get, and where do your friends get it? Either their parents or probably magazines, books, like the internet, and that could be awful. And it's like, well, we need just one. It probably comes from Jamie Oliver, for God's sake, and we put olive oil on everything. So we just need like you said, a standard body that actually is legitimate. And we'd be better off. I was just thinking, you'd be better off having like a kind of a traffic light system based off total calories. So less than 500, maybe it's green, like between 500 and 1,000 orange, over 1,000 red, because calories is the biggest influencer on total health. If you're in a huge surplus, at least that would control people gaining weight as much, maybe, and they can eat more green, or I don't know, and you hope their satiety signals work. But in this modern, like we talked about before, that kind of intuitive style of approach, if you're just basing it off that idea, it doesn't work because you're driven to overeat tasty food.
You studied economics, right?
Mm.
So are you still interested in economics?
I absolutely am. I don't say I keep up with it.
Okay, because this is exactly what is going on there as well. There are people in the government, especially right now, EU and US, perfect examples, right? The country's death is incredible, especially in the US, what it is right now. Trillions, right? And the thing is that the interest rate is basically negative interest rates at the moment. -0, right? And the thing is that people are sitting there and they are not learning from their past mistakes when it comes to financial crisis. And the next financial crisis is very, very likely to happen very soon. Many indicators are pointing towards that, right? Many indicators. And this is going to be a global crisis this time. 2008 will be kind of a joke when it comes to that, right? It was probably going to be a huge depression. Probably even exceeding that from the 20s, which is crazy to think, right? So when it then comes to stuff like that, where you're thinking, okay, there are people sitting in the government and running the financial system with good faith and also with an educational background. And if you're then hearing them talk about these kind of things, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And the same applies to something like the regulatory system behind something like health and nutrition and stuff like that. So if someone is then giving out a regulatory system that is the traffic light system, who is then giving out the requirements that predicts, okay, a food is then actually in the green zone, yellow zone, or red zone, right? If we're doing that with the calories, totally fine. It's a little bit more objective, but still there's someone who's probably has read something like, no, sugar is the devil. It's causing insulin and insulin resistance, and thus it needs to be a red one, right? Where the education is there also fading because also there confirmation bias and also the Dunning-Kruger effect. We digress extremely much, I realize, but it's just like, I don't know, the question I just wanted to bring up is who then gives an objective opinion on what these traffic light systems should look like and what the requirements are to determine what color they need to have, right? And I think that it needs to come more so from, I don't know, a external, I don't know, company is also the wrong word. What's it called again? Anyway, let's move on to the next topic.
It's so tricky, isn't it? It's to us, we've known the key principles of nutrition and what makes health for a while, and you have someone like Renaissance Periodization creating their healthy eating book, which is fantastic. And I sent that to my entire family because I was like, you need to read this because it's just the best book out there now teaching you. But it's still so much of it, the stuff in there, they have a whole section covering all the myths, and so many of those myths are like prevailed by quote unquote experts out there. And it's like, how do we tackle this? It's so hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike for president.
Yeah, Mike for president. 2020 election, it's now coming. So yeah, sorry for the long rant here, but I think it's also very interesting to talk about these things every once in a while, because I think it's easily forgotten that we are in our small bubble and thinking that everyone is well aware of these things that we are well aware of, or that we think is common knowledge, which in general it's simply not, right?
Yeah, and it's funny you brought this up because I was saying to Charlotte the other day, I was like, your mum found it weird that I was weighing out food for Ada. So I weigh out Ada's food because I want her to have, like, quote unquote, the right sort of amount. Yeah. And Ada will eat everything. Ada's my dog, for those who don't know. And then I was like, Charlotte, if we had a kid, if I have a kid one day, I don't know how I'll do their nutrition, because I'm like, I'll be like, gosh, work out his macros. I won't, like, I know that's not the right, quote unquote, the right thing to do, and it's not something I would want to put on my child, and I wouldn't want them to have awareness of all of that until they've kind of grown up and then get an education or something. But it's a tricky area. So how do you? I guess Katie has good experience because she's kind of brought up Hugo already. But how do you handle that sort of thing?
So for me, I'm always just having an eye out on that they don't eat when they are already full. So Katie and I are very adamant about that, saying like, you don't have to eat that if you don't want anymore. It's absolutely all right. No one needs to force it down your throat. This is something that I had when I was little. Probably also this is just a difference between generations. So our parent generation, they grew up with the parents who went through World War II. And for them, it was like, holy shit, you eat when you eat or when you have food in front of you, then you eat because you never know when the next meal is coming, right? And because of that mentality, my parents still taught me like, you finish that plate. If a plate is in front of you, you finish that, right? And
same in school.
Yeah. Absolutely, right? And we are trying to teach Hugo that it's absolutely all right to leave food on the table. Sure, we are living in a society where we are over consuming and all that kind of stuff. And I know that just leaving food on the table while other people are starving in the world is not the coolest thing. But man, then we are already at a quite different topic of discussion. Yeah. You can't base your lifestyle of the lifestyle of other areas in the world. Only because other people have less than you don't to put your standards to that level, right? We are at a totally different hierarchy when it comes to the hierarchy of needs based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Thus, we have other problems. We can make other choices when it comes to that. But anyway, once again, we want them to eat as much as they want, right? And don't stuff their face, because I think that kids really still have a very good intuitive sense of when they don't want to eat anymore, especially when you take care of that they don't eat like just highly palatable foods all the time, but that the foods that they are eating are wholesome foods. And the body is very good at just regulating hunger then, if you're not just like, because we know that from The Hungry Brain, written by Stephen Guyenet, the brain just overrides everything if you're just like putting highly palatable food in there that is then also highly processed as well, or processed. Not good, right? Because it would just override everything and you will overeat, or very likely overeat. And if you're just like ingraining that into a child's brain, the likelihood that they are being disconnected to their hunger signals is very, very high. And if they don't learn it while they are young, it will be very hard or next to impossible to learn it when they are adults or so. And so this is one thing that we are always looking for. And every once in a while, I'm trying to make sure that he's getting sufficient amount of protein. Kids don't need much protein. They really don't. I mean, Hugo weighs 17 kilograms. So he doesn't need much, right? Yeah, he doesn't need much, right? So you don't need to overdo it, but just have an eye on a little bit of protein, because we all know that when it comes to a macronutrient, this is the most important one, because
you want everything. Jacked.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but everything is regulated by amino acids in your system, right? Of course, also triglycerides are important as well, but you don't really need to worry about getting in enough fatty acids, to be honest, when it comes to kids.
What was it? Broderick said you could get your daily need for fats from licking a Post-it note. Yeah, for example. And when it comes to amino acids, they are just like freaking the key, right? And I think that when it comes to society, and this is something that females, unfortunately, are a great example for, is that people tend to absolutely undereat protein and overconsume fats and carbohydrates. And it already begins in the kids' years, adolescence years. Yeah. And that's why I'm just always kind of looking, okay, instead of going for, I don't know, a meat option that is just like high fat meat or so, right? Here, have a little bit of maybe a turkey slice in there as well, and blend it or mix it so that you get a little bit of protein. We should end this tangent, but one last thing is just the whole female thing. That's just a societal thing, isn't it? It's like men eat steak, women eat salad. Like, that still exists.
Yeah,
it's crazy actually, but that could be a whole side topic in itself.
I do know when I was working in an office, there was a friend of mine, Gulchan. She did CrossFit, right? And she wanted to get fit and I don't know, in better shape, but nothing was working for her. And then we actually had a look over her nutrition, and she was only eating like 20 grams of protein per day. It was just
2 bagels.
Yeah, it's just
It's
holy
actually
shit. No surprise, nothing is working. Because I mean, if you're only eating that much, the amino acids for muscle protein synthesis need to come from somewhere, and that is the muscle tissue.
Yeah, not good. Right, question time.
Absolutely. So, let's go over to Tom Paul. How would you go about training around a lower back injury muscularly?
Interesting. This would be a really good question for our physio, Mike Chalice, probably.
That's true.
Just because this would be his area of speciality. Lower back injuries. So when just looking through muscle groups, which one's going to be affected? Pushing exercises, not really, unless you're doing a standing overhead press, do it seated. So then you look at pulling exercises, probably horizontal rowing type movements. You want to just do those chest supported. So if you're doing like a bent over barbell row, do like a chest supported machine row or a one arm row, something that's going to take out the lower back, quite easy. Arms, again, you could do those all seated if you needed to. You shouldn't be kind of finding you've got anything going on with your lower back. And then the tricky one is going to be kind of axial loading through doing kind of quad, glute, and hamstring work. And that's where it's going to be tricky. So obviously you've got your leg extensions, you've got your leg curls, which you can definitely do. And then it's whether or not you can get in the leg press and find that pain-free. If you've got a pain-free range of motion on any of the lifts, that's also a great thing you can do. Use less axial loading lifts, so leg press, hack squats, leg curls, maybe back extensions. That might be okay. It kind of depends on what the severity of the injury is like. But I imagine like Romanian deadlifts, good mornings, maybe squat variants would be out of question, but possibly you can do like a belt squat. That'd be pretty cool if you've got access to that. Or lunge patterns are often really good. You could do like a split squat in the Smith machine. That's like requires very little stability, should take pressure off the lower back. I think that is pretty much my thoughts. Basically workarounds. And I think you probably could, depending on the severity of the low back pain.
Absolutely. So nothing more to add there. Only one thing that I found has helped so many of my athletes when it comes to knee pain and also lower back pain is lunge variations. Like honestly, especially also knee pain, which you wouldn't expect because there's still a little bit of knee flexion going on, but the amount of loading that is required in those movement patterns is very, very little, and still you get a huge stimulus out of those.
Especially reverse lunge, sorry.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect walk around the injury, in my opinion.
Fantastic.
Cool.
And I hope he heals up.
So, Joseph Korfman, any tips for how to effectively use a lifting belt on squat, bench, and deadlift?
Interesting.
And belt recommendations, said Aditya Savant.
So I think for bodybuilding, you don't need a lot of people go straight in for the powerlifting style belts. For bodybuilding, I don't think you need as much support. Like certainly not a 30 millimeter belt. Whereas if you're powerlifting, then maybe you want the thickest because that'll provide you potentially the best support for you. I have a 10 millimeter lever belt by what are they called?
Strength Shop.
Not Strength Shop. No. Inza belt. Because obviously Matt Ogus had an Inza belt, so I had to get one.
I have one as well.
I have a single prong Inza belt. The thing I'd say that's great about that belt is that it's the same thickness all the way around. A lot of people, especially females, go for this style of belt where it's thinner on the front and wider on the back. And I think that can be maybe useful for getting into positions on a deadlift if it's uncomfortable, maybe if some people have issues with a full thick belt all the way around. But I think most of our listeners will be fine with that. And that allows you to really brace into the entirety of the belt. So you're not kind of got less support on the front than on the rear. In terms of thickness of a belt, I think anything is almost enough, like just something so you can brace your abs into it. So I think there's like Rehaband is perfectly fine. I think that's a brand that you can get kind of just like a Velcro belt. I think that for bodybuilding, that probably is sufficient. And then in terms of bracing tips, I would look up like the Valsalva maneuver. And that effectively is what you kind of want to do into the belt. A lot of people just put them on and they don't think about their breathing. They don't think about their bracing. And what I tend to do is, actually, I don't think about it when I use it now. I just brace and it kind of works. But I used to like breathe in, suck in my stomach, then breathe out, keeping my stomach sucked in, and then breathe in again and push out as far as I could into the belt. I don't know if that makes sense, but now I just think brace, and I brace into the belt and I push my abs and I try and push the air that I've taken in when I'm taking the Valsalva maneuver into the entirety of my stomach, and less so my chest, but you may get some chest as long as you filled up like everywhere. I think Eric Helms made a video about this where it's like, you can aim to just kind of brace and get vacuum in your stomach, but if you just want to take a safe bet, you can just get it in your chest and fully fill out the stomach as well. But for bodybuilding, I don't think you need to worry about all of those details as much as for maybe powerlifting, where you're doing like triples and less than that, where it's bracing becomes super important.
I've told you that I broke my rib cage, or not my entire rib cage, but some ribs back in the days due to a lifting belt. I have an injury as well. And right now, I realize that the leaner I'm getting, the more uncomfortable it becomes, because the belt, for the way I'm built, it really is always, so when it's tight enough so that I can actually breathe into the belt, my rib cage is too wide, and thus it pushes underneath my ribs when I'm doing something like a squat, for example, and also when I'm doing Smith machine squats at the moment, because I'm going really, really deep. At some point, the belt will just get into a position where I feel like, okay, this is not working here. And for me, a belt right now is not the way to go. I can't do it. So not using that anymore. So I don't know if you've ever experienced anything like that.
I used my belt until I got, like, I think I used it for the entire of my prep last time, but I had it on the smallest hole and it was painful. It hurt. I think I probably will get to the point where maybe actually this is where the more Velcro, softer type belts have a bit more give. And so there might be an option for you, or might be an option for someone as they're getting leaner. And the only other thing, they look really bro-ish, don't they? Yeah. Like someone who doesn't really know what they're doing wears one of those.
Exactly. That's what I want to say. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe I need then to buy some lifting gloves as well. And
I never really considered it until Mike. I can't remember one of the seminars. He showed everyone his belt and spoke about it.
Deadlifting belt, right?
It's like a Velcro-y.
What's it called?
Spud. That's what it's called. There you go.
Spudding, you know.
Yeah. So Spudding deadlifting belt, and I remember I bought one, but then it was the wrong size. I sent it back, and I never bothered buying another one because I just used my Inza belt. Just wear a jumper over the top, then that acts as padding and fat. The only other thing I'd say is, like, you talked about bracing, and we talked about bracing. Wear it tight enough. A lot of people just put it on again as if it's like a belt to keep their trousers up. Like, actually make sure when it's on, it's almost a bit uncomfortable. You should be able to breathe and brace into it, but it should be very tight, so you can maybe just tuck your hand in there.
I also always felt that for leaner individuals, it doesn't really do much on the bench.
I've never used it on the bench. I have tried, and it never. Yeah,
I've tried it in the past, and what I've found is, because you're lean, right, and you are then, I don't know, creating your arch, you're actually stretching your upper body, and because of that, you're lengthening the ab portion as well. And when you have a lifting belt there, it doesn't do jack shit for you, like, honestly. However, when you are, of course, a very, very, I don't know, heavyweight powerlifter, for example, where you have like a lot of midsection, I can see that it may even be beneficial, because you tuck it around and it will not move, right? But when you're leaner and you're getting into that stretch position, you're just like lengthening your upper body and doesn't do really much anymore. So yeah, that's just my experience.
Yeah, I remember I tried it once and I kind of didn't find it helped, and I never tried again. And again, I'm not sure the applicability to bodybuilders as much, because you're not arching maybe as hard as you are when you're powerlifting.
So moving on to the second next question because it kind of ties into this one. Muffins asks, I find my belt gets tighter after just a few sets on my session's first compound lift. Is the exercise-induced stress being inflicted on the body causing more water fluctuations that quickly, or is it just due to our diaphragm working harder?
Interesting, because I find the exact opposite. I find as I put it on, it feels tighter, and then as I go through my lifts, it feels a little bit looser and more comfortable. Yes. Is that what you feel?
Yeah. I think that for you and me, it's probably due to the change of water tissue. This is also when it comes to taking measurements with a caliper, for example. You only need to be at that spot for a couple of seconds because otherwise the water on that intercellular space is just like going somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Makes sense, right? And I think for us, it's then due to the compression, the water is just going somewhere else for a short period of time. What I think is happening for you, Muffins, and this is just a pure assumption, it could be that I'm absolutely wrong, is just cell swelling, muscle cells. If you have like big erectors, for example, right, and you are engaging the midsection properly and the abs are working as well, maybe there is a little bit of cell swelling going on that is then pushing against the belt, and you are just experiencing a little bit of a pump in that area. Just an assumption of mine.
The only other thing I can think of is sometimes like I vaguely need the loo and then I piss and then the belt's looser. So maybe he's drinking fluids and then his gut is expanding slightly and it's getting tighter, but that's a long shot. I'm sorry, Muffins, I don't have a good answer for you.
Then let's move back to Michael Wilson. How would you structure mesocycles and deloads for Gen Pop clients that are only training 1 to 2 times per week?
That is tricky because that's certainly not our area of speciality, certainly not mine, because we don't train newbies. And
that sounded judgmental.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant like the newbies want in-person coaching, in my opinion, to learn technique and form and getting all that down. So online coaching, just our platform, doesn't make sense for them. Not that we would reject them because we don't think they'd get the service they require or the results from online coaching. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean it to sound judgmental. Or the new year, new me people. I love you. It's fine. So yeah, in that scenario, I mean, full body, it's got to be able to get the requisite volume in and focus on big compound lifts. And because you're training twice per week, you probably actually want to take things very close to failure. But if you're a newbie, I wouldn't like go to failure. I wouldn't want to see any technique breakdown, but I certainly wouldn't worry about like accurately leaving reps in reserve. I'd push hard, but not let form break down. And that's where you're going to move forward. I think you'll struggle past the newbie stage to keep seeing results because you just won't be able to get the requisite quality volume in.
This is one of the scenarios where I would be one proponent for reactive deloads. I hardly ever am a fan of reactive deloads, but this one, I would do it. When you're only training 1 to 2 times per week and you are a beginner Gen Pop client, I don't really see the necessity of actually taking deloads that frequently unless they really need it. But then, hey, props to that client because then they push themselves hard probably. And then maybe external factors come into play as well that they need that deload. But other than that, take the deloads when they are necessary.
And I do also similar. I'm not normally a proponent of this, but I do like antagonist supersets. Good idea to make sure you're getting as much in that time as possible. I probably wouldn't I wouldn't do like myo reps or anything. I'd focus on those big ticket item compound lifts and making sure technique's very good. And like you said, you miss one session, say, you've already like halved your training volume for the week. So that acts as almost a big old deload for you. So I'm completely with you on the reactive deload type schedule. And it will probably not have to be for months.
Yeah. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just wanted to take one moment of your time to actually talk about our coaching services over at Revive Stronger. We at Revive Stronger, we offer an incredible premium personal coaching service just for people like you, and I know you will love it. Do you want to work with us? Here's what I need you to do. Head over to revivestronger.com. Go up to the coaching tab, click on online coaching. Once there, read through the requirements and what it takes to be an online client. Once finished, hit apply now and you're only one step away from applying to our services. Fill out the Google form and you're done. And that was basically it. A coach is going to reach out to you shortly and then it's Team Revive Stronger. Yeah. So Jan Christensen. So if you did not progress at all during the last 2 years, say on bench progress, 6 years in the gym in total, starting at a 100 kilogram 1 rep max on 94 kilograms body weight at 193 meters, how would you go about it? Change it up completely and hit the chest more with machine presses and less bench press, or any other approach? I tried many setbacks and I deload regularly every 5 to 8 weeks, and hypertrophy is the main goal.
So that's really interesting, because my line of thought completely changed when you ended it with hypertrophy as the main goal.
Me too.
When you were talking about strength, I was thinking one thing, and then he mentioned 1RMs.
Me too.
But so when you're talking about hypertrophy, it's such an interesting thing that he's worried about a 1RM, because it's just simply not something we need to even test for. It's a very skill-based thing. You could see your 1RM go up and you get no more muscular. So I wouldn't concentrate too much on that 1 rep max. I'd be more focusing on like your set by set performance, volume PRs, what you're doing for 5+ repetitions in terms of loading. I would, however, after 2 years, expect a 1 rep max to go up, which is where I was thinking initially. And then that just leads me to think millions of questions. What are you doing with your nutrition? What are you doing outside? What's your sleep like? Are you in a surplus? Are you in a deficit? What is your sleep like? Are you getting plenty of sleep? But it is strange to not see any progress for 2 years on a 1 rep max. But again, if you're seeing progress on like 5+ repetitions, I wouldn't be stressing about it for hypertrophy at all. I just wouldn't worry about it. It might be that you're doing too much volume to ever express a decent 1 rep max, and your performance is always low because you're in a fatigue state when you're attempting that 1 rep max. Say if you go into a deload and you try it on the first deload session and you're like, well, you've just done volume for the last 5 weeks. You've got high fatigue levels. Your fitness is now not kind of exceeding that, and so your performance is dipping, and no wonder your 1RM is no good. So yeah, it's like probably the same for you, Pascal. There's like a million questions you want to kind of go back and forth and have a consultation with this person. Yeah, and also just in general, only because you're stalling doesn't mean that you are stalling in regards to hypertrophy. I brought it up here on the podcast episode with your man, Arne Otte. It's a German podcast though, so you probably wouldn't understand anything that we were talking about. But what I'm talking there is, for example, the progression rate of certain lifts, and that the anticipation of an expectation of people is sometimes absolutely screwed. Because if you're expecting to always put load on the bar, like let's just say even theoretically each and every single mesocycle, right? That is not realistic. That will mean that someone like you or I, after 6 years, 7 years of training, would be able on the lat pull down to do something like 400 kilograms. I'm still doing something like 70 to 80 kilograms there. And this is the range I've been hovering around for, I don't know for how long. And still my back grew. Because in the end, I think that taking care of something like the mind-muscle connection, also over time, the longer you lift, the more you're able to recruit more motor units that are then firing, right? So you get more efficient on a per rep basis. And even though that the lifts don't go up in regards to the 1 rep max or the overall load, this is also something that is neurologically driven and technical efficiency. And however, it must be said that if your technique becomes more refined over time, probably the recruitment, once again, of muscle fibers is then higher. And in the end, you get a better response on a per rep basis. So what you could even do in that scenario is look back 2 years ago. Has your form improved over that time? Do those 100 kilograms look quite different to what they look like 2 years from now? And this is something that definitely happened for me. I'm now doing less on the leg extension machine that I've done like 2 years ago.
Have I gotten weaker? Yeah, maybe just a little bit because my focus changed. But let's just assume that I stayed level when it comes to my overall strength. Still, I dropped the load because I now work the muscle group with an intent. I go in there and try to make every repetition count. And also this, I'm still far away from being perfect when it comes to that. Every once in a while, I probably still get sloppy, and I'm still working on improving my technique so that maybe in 2 years from now, I'm still using the same load on the leg extension, but each and every repetition is even more so enhanced and improved than it was now, right? So, load progression, take it always a little bit with a grain of salt, as long as it's not ridiculously low, where you're just like a little bit skeptical of something must be wrong here. Like, let's say you are only benching 50 kilograms and you are 94 kilograms body weight and you've been lifting for 6 years. This is the time where I would be like, maybe there is a benefit of actually getting stronger for you. But for someone like you, I don't know. You're a tall guy, lengthy guy. You have probably very long arms as well. Maybe the other lifts are going up. Maybe form has improved. So do you need to freak out about it? I don't think that it is the right time to do so. Yes, look into that, but stressing about it, I don't think it's necessary.
Awesome. No, fantastic answer. And the only tiny detail I'm going to add is he spoke about, should I use machine presses instead? Or I would say is if he is just using bench press as his only like chest movement and he's not ever varying it, or he's just been doing it for ages, it certainly is a decent idea to vary it. At least try different grip width, or move to like a Smith machine or dumbbells or a machine, just for some variation to hit the muscle in a different way, because there is such thing as like stalling like an exercise, and it might just be that you've just got out of sync with it and it's just not working well. You might not be well built for it. So that is just an additional consideration.
So last question on that one is a quick one, but I found it very interesting. I would like to hear your take on that, and then we are on time. So Roman Garm asks, my front delts are lacking. Should I do front raises, less fatigue, or overhead presses to bring them up?
Interesting. I don't think I've ever met anyone with front delts that are lacking. So my first actual thought is like, can I see a photo? Only because some people are terrible at knowing their strengths and weaknesses. I've had people like, for me, I'm always and this might be a bad example, but I've had people compliment my quads and be like, I wish I had your like legs. Whereas I look at them and I'm like, they're a weak point. I need bigger quads. And whether or not it's true or not, it's just kind of, there's that subjective opinion. I've had other people say I need to bring up my quads, for example. So just remember that. So you might be looking at yourself and have a bit of a misperception to your physique. Particularly I say that because I've never seen anyone lack front delt. But assuming that it is the case, I don't see anything wrong with adding in front raises if it's legitimately something that is kind of lagging for you. Likewise, I don't see anything wrong with you adding in overhead press then, because that is a big anterior deltoid builder. You just have to realize if you're doing that, you may sacrifice volume towards chest, which might mean you've got a very well developed chest. So I don't think it changes anything. It just, you use the principles. What area do I need to build up? And apply volume appropriately. The reason most people don't, and why we generally don't say for hypertrophy do front raises or overhead press, is because most people don't lag front delts, and they don't need to. They're better. They're better using their kind of volume to allocate it towards other muscle groups, and the front deltoid normally gets sufficient from all the other work we're doing. So yeah, that's my take on it. Was it similar to yours?
Yeah, I found it just interesting, just based on an assumption. Making the assumption of like, okay, let's assume that your front delts are truly lacking. What to do then? And I just was curious to hear your answer, but it basically aligns with what I would have said as well, which is cool. So, yeah.
That's it.
More to say. That's it.
Membership site plug.
Yeah, membership site. If you want to follow Steve and my prep a little bit more in depth than the weekly improvement season podcast, where we are basically also not truly touching on what we're doing. sure, we are
Not the details.
Not the details, exactly. And if you truly want to interact with us there, and the thing is, right, so many people, they would love to have a coach as well, but they can't afford it, or they don't want to have that level of accountability of weekly check-ins and stuff like that, which I can totally understand, right? And sometimes it's a financial component, where people simply can't afford it. The membership side, $6.99 per month, it is the perfect place to be, because we have that forum there. If you are having any kind of questions, yes, we have our Facebook group of 4,000 members, but you can only get that much out of that. If you're logging your journey there, people are willing to help you all along the way, and then you can actually kind of have a coach alongside. Well, it kind of acts like a community coach, community coaching, so to speak. And I mean, $6.99 is a bargain to actually have that done.
And the idea for the forum actually is to have really smart people in there interacting. So we've got like some affiliates. We've got Jack Gadd, who is a very competitive natural bodybuilder. We've got Jack Rayner, who puts out fantastic information, is a great coach. We've got Brett Freeman, world lightweight bantam champion, like
2 times.
Exactly. So to have
2
that sort of
times
people
world
in there.
champion. Do I need to say more for $6.99? Bam.
Walnut butt.
Walnut butt.
And in addition to that, if we didn't get to your questions and you really want your questions answered, we're also doing specific Q&As in there with a video going over every question that's asked in that week. So we will always get to your question there.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Cool. So I guess I'll speak to you next week. And for all the other guys, see you either next week or maybe in the membership.